By the end of this lesson, you'll understand the different ways to customize or extend S/4HANA Cloud applications and see a demonstration of some common, powerful tweaks. We will focus on what an Apple key user, a specially authorized business user, or IT analyst at Apple can do without writing code. First, to add a custom field to capture Apple-specific data and make it appear in relevant apps and reports. We will then review how to adjust the UI layout of an app using SAP's Adapt UI feature to reorder fields, hide sections, or add new fields to the screen so that Apple's users have an optimal experience. We will also briefly mention other extensibility options like adding custom logic or integrating a side-by-side app on SAP BTP to give a full picture, but our demonstration will stick to the no-code in-app changes. Think of customizing applications like customizing a car. The base model is provided by SAP the app with standard fields and logic, and Apple can choose the paint color, add a spoiler, or upgrade the sound system, all without redesigning the engine. SAP's extensibility framework ensures Apple can make these changes without breaking the standard. When SAP upgrades the system, which happens regularly in cloud, Apple's custom fields and UI adjustments are carried forward. Throughout this lesson, we'll stick with Apple as our example company. Consider an Apple scenario. Apple's supply chain team wants to track an additional attribute for components, maybe a supplier batch code on purchase orders that is not standard in SAP. Or Apple's sales team wants the order entry screen to display an Apple ID reference number prominently. We'll see how such changes can be done using the Fiori extensibility apps. Let's get hands-on with making SAP fit Apple like a glove. SAP S/4HANA Cloud provides three main extensibility mechanisms. Let's review this one by one. First is key user in-app extensibility. This is done within the S/4HANA Cloud system by a key user, typically via Fiori apps. It includes things like UI adaptation, custom fields, custom business logic, simple scripts or formulas, and custom business objects. It's mostly no code or low code. We'll be doing this in our demo. Next, we have developer extensibility in-app. This allows professional developers with ABAP knowledge to extend the system in a controlled way using the ABAP development tools in a cloud environment. It's more advanced and requires the SAP S/4HANA Cloud ABAP environment. Beginners won't do this, but know that if Apple had really complex in-app extensions, a developer could create them. For example, a custom ABAP class or a new OData service. We also have side-by-side extensibility. This is using the SAP Business Technology Platform, BTP, to build external applications or services that integrate with S/4HANA Cloud via APIs or events. Think of completely separate apps, maybe a custom iPhone app for store managers that pull data from S/4HANA Cloud. We won't do this in our demo, but it's an option for larger custom requirements. For most day-to-day tweaks, key user in-app extensibility is the star. It enables Apple to tailor fields and UI without coding. As SAP says, extensibility is about aligning the software to unique business processes without breaking the core. In fact, SAP categorizes extensibility changes to ensure stability. Things like adding a field or rearranging a screen are permitted and won't affect the underlying cloud upgrades. Apple's changes are applied on top of the standard. To give a quick example, suppose Apple wants to add a new field, product launch date, to the material master app to record when a product was first launched to market. Using key user tools, We can add this field and even have it show up in related transactions. Sales orders, for instance, might pull that date in for info. We don't have to modify the SAP program. We just declare this new field, place it on screens, and SAP's framework handles storing and transporting that data. Similarly, if Apple finds the purchase order screen has fields they never use, maybe there's a field for region that Apple doesn't utilize, they can hide it for their users via UI adaptation. The underlying data element stays in the system, but it's just not shown, resulting in a cleaner interface for Apple's purchasers. To summarize, in-app extensibility or key user extensibility enables users to easily customize SAP solutions directly within the application. Specifically, it includes UI adaptation, which lets you move, hide, or add fields on user screens for better usability. Custom fields, allowing you to create new data fields and integrate them seamlessly into user interfaces, reports, and APIs. Custom logic and rules, which involves developing small snippets of logic such as validations or substitutions triggered at specific events using tools like the Custom Logic app and ABAP based BADE extensions in a controlled manner. Custom business objects, useful when, for example, Apple needs to store entirely new kinds of data, creating custom objects with dedicated fields, essentially like building small custom tables and user interfaces for easy data management. And finally, custom analytical queries or forms, providing the ability to tailor reports and printed forms precisely to business needs. Now, let's focus on two main ones for our Apple demo: UI adaptation and custom fields. SAP Fiori apps often have more fields and sections than a specific company might use. Through UI adaptation at runtime, also called key user adaptation, Apple's key users can personalize the interface and then publish those changes for all users in that role. This is done by entering a special Adapt UI mode in the Fiori Launchpad, only accessible to users with the proper authorization, like someone with the Extensibility Specialist or Administrator role. Let's walk through a scenario. Apple's sales order entry app is quite comprehensive. Apple notices that in their context, certain fields like sales district or customer group are not used. Also, they want to highlight the Apple product group field, which we'll assume exists at the top of the screen for quick visibility. Let's use the Adapt UI. An Apple key user opens the Create Sales Order app. Let us enter the required data to get to the Sales Order Create screen. In the user menu, usually under the user icon on the top right, they see an option Adapt UI because their role allows it. They select this. The screen reloads in a special edit mode. Now, as they hover over the screen, they can select elements. Let's say they click on the sales district field. An option appears to hide it. They do so, the field disappears from the form. They can always unhide from the list of available fields if needed. They click on a section of the screen, for instance, the product group details. They find product group field and decide it should appear higher up. Using drag and drop or the outline view of UI elements, they move product group to a more prominent group or mark it as visible in the main section. They can also adjust layout, maybe combine two smaller fields on one line to save space and so on. The adaptation mode often lets you reposition by drag drop. If two fields are placed side by side, that's combining them in one row. The tool even allows multi-select of fields to align them horizontally. Suppose Apple wants to add some explanatory text or a subtitle. There are sometimes options to add simple UI elements like text or separators depending on the app's flexibility. For our purpose, we'll focus on moving, hiding fields. After making these changes, the key user clicks Save and then a Publish, often represented by a magic wand icon to finalize and a truck icon to transport in older versions. When publishing, they can choose to apply these changes to all users of certain roles. For example, all users with the sales order clerk role. They activate the new version of the app and publish it. Now on to custom fields, adding new data fields to the system. Suppose Apple's finance team wants to mark whether a vendor invoice is related to environmental initiatives, maybe an internal categorization they track for corporate reporting. There is no standard field for this in the supplier invoice app. We can create one. This can be done using the Custom Fields app, a Fiori app for key users. In the first step, the key user navigates to Custom Fields. They choose to create a new field. Let's call it Environmental Initiative Flag, ENV init for short. They select the business context. This means where this field will live. SAP provides contexts like procurement, supplier invoice if we want it on invoices. For our example, choose business context, supplier invoice. By doing this, SAP knows which objects and UI this field can be related to. Then define the field properties, perhaps a checkbox, Boolean, or a drop-down. Let's say it's a checkbox, green initiative, default value, no, and it's just informational. They give it a label and technical name. Here's the powerful part. They can tick where this field should be used. Options include UI, which UIs should show it. The system will list UIs in that context. For example, create supplier invoices app form, reports, maybe make it available in analytical data so you can filter or display it in finance reports, and APIs or data so it's available if extracting data or integrating. The key user selects all that are relevant. For instance, mark it to be available in the invoice, UI, and in relevant CDS views for reporting. Then save and publish the custom field. SAP will do some behind the scenes work. It extends the data model. Once it's done, it might take a few moments to activate. The field is now part of the system's data dictionary. Next, exposing the field on the UI. Creating it doesn't automatically put it on the screen, but now it's available to be placed. The key user goes to Adapt UI for the supplier invoice screen, similar to earlier steps. In the Adaptation panel, they will find our new field Environmental Initiative flag as an available field to add. It's often under a section called Custom Fields, ready to be dragged in. You can drag this field into, say, the invoice header section on the UI. Perhaps under a group additional information, they might also add a text label or so if needed, but the field's label green initiative will show. Save and publish the UI adaptation. Now, when an Apple user opens a supplier invoice or creates a new one, they will see a checkbox for green initiative. They can tick it for relevant invoices. That data gets saved along with the invoice in the database. Later, Apple can run a report, for example, an accounts payable report, and include this flag to filter or group by it because we made it available in reporting. Another quick example, Apple's product team wants to classify products by generation, like Gen 1, Gen 2 for devices. If not already present, they could add a custom field on the product master context and similarly enable it on product UI and inventory reports. In general, custom fields allow Apple to capture business specific info that SAP didn't originally include and use it throughout processes. The S/4HANA cloud system ensures these custom fields behave like standard fields. They can even be used in formulas or in printing forms. What about custom logic? This is a bit advanced for a beginner, but as an example, Apple could use the custom logic app to add a little piece of code at a certain point. For example, when saving a sales order, run a check. If the total order value 50,000 and the customer is new, automatically set a flag or send an approval. This would be done via a predefined enhancement option, BADI, provided by SAP. The key user, with some scripting help, maybe from IT, would implement that logic in the cloud in a restricted ABAP editor available in the app. This way, Apple can enforce a business rule not present in standard. We won't detail the steps here, but it's good to know it exists. Finally, there's the possibility to create custom business objects if Apple has entirely new data to store. Say Apple wants to track trade-in devices in a table. They could create a custom object with fields like device, serial, customer, value, and SAP will generate a rudimentary UI to maintain that. This is also done in the Custom Fields and Logic app under Custom Business Objects. In this lesson, we saw how a company like Apple can go beyond standard configuration and customize the actual applications in SAP S/4HANA Cloud, all without touching the core code. We learned about SAP's extensibility concept, which allows tailoring of the system in a safe manner. The key user tools empower Apple to make changes, such as adding fields or modifying screens, ensuring the system can capture Apple's unique requirements and present information in the most useful way. During the demonstration, we focused on two powerful techniques. First, user interface adaptation. We walked through how Apple's key user can enter the UI adaptation mode and rearrange or hide fields on a Fiori app screen. In our example, we improved the sales order screen for Apple by removing unused fields and highlighting important ones. The result is a cleaner, more Apple-specific UI that helps end users focus on what matters. We emphasize that these UI changes can be made for all users of a given role, improving consistency and efficiency for Apple's teams. Next is custom fields. We showed how Apple can create a custom field like a special flag on supplier invoices using the Custom Fields app and then surface it in relevant UIs and reports. This means Apple isn't forced to use generic fields to store important data, no more repurposing a notes field to cram in some extra info. Instead, they have a properly labeled reportable field integrated into the process. We saw that adding a custom field to a UI is as simple as dragging it in once it's created. These changes were all done through configuration and no-code, low-code steps by a key user. We also briefly mentioned that if Apple needed to implement custom logic or even side-by-side extensions, those options exist, but even many advanced needs can be met with in-app extensibility. For example, if Apple wanted an additional check or automation, they could use the custom logic tool to plug it into the standard process at defined hook points. Why is all this important? Because no two companies are identical. Apple has some processes that are uniquely theirs, be it special data they track for products or a certain workflow nuance. With S/4HANA Cloud's extensibility, Apple can achieve these requirements without programming a custom solution from scratch and without jeopardizing their ability to get future updates. The system stays clean, standard at its core, and Apple's customizations are layered on top. This is often called keeping a clean core with extensibility. It's a guiding principle in modern cloud ERP. Let's reflect on what we've learned with a few questions. What are some examples of changes that Apple can make using key user in-app extensibility versus changes that would require side-by-side extensibility or developer work? Think about adding a field versus building a new complex app. How does SAP ensure that when Apple adds a custom field or adapts a UI, these changes do not break when the system is upgraded? Why is this approach better than modifying the underlying program code? Imagine Apple wants to enforce a specific business rule. For example, if an order is over $10,000, mark it as high value automatically. Based on this lesson, which extensibility feature might they use? And how would it integrate with the standard process? Reflecting on these questions will help solidify your grasp of customizing applications in SAP S/4HANA Cloud.